and represents a game and a player who will never be forgotten. Joe Black, BBC News in Wellingborough.
£2.5 million. Nearly
To three.
Well, Christian Allen from the National Football Museum joins us now. Morning, Christian.
Good morning, both
You've got
of you.
various bits and pieces here that you're going to talk us through, but let's just talk about that particular ball first of all. How is it worth so much money, and who on earth is going to pay that for it?
Well, firstly, it's of huge sort of sporting significance from such a famous game, two of the most famous goals in football history. So that's partly the reason it's significant. But also nostalgia. People are very nostalgic about it, certainly within sporting memorabilia as well, and that certainly plays a part in its worth.
But I come back to the 3 million?
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it doesn't come long after the shirt, the Hand of God shirt, was sold earlier this year at the National Football Museum. We were lucky to have that on display for almost 20 years. And so it's the right time, I suppose, off the back of the shirt.
So the shirt that you have next to you there, that's a replica.
This is a replica that
of the Hand of God shirt.
Yeah, so we used to get school children dressed in this when we used to have the shirt on display so they could pose as Diego Maradona. So this is the closest that we have now. The shirt obviously sold a few months back now for just over £7 million, and it's over in Qatar.
I wonder whether the person who bought the shirt will want the ball to go with it.
Perhaps for the set, yeah. Then the shorts and the socks and the boots might come into play as well. Yeah, all those people that own those will be coming out the woodwork.
This sounded like my son's Christmas list, not the Maradona stuff.
And is the ball so valuable because it's so controversial, because the incident's so famous?
Yeah, I mean, both goals in that game, one is infamous and one is famous, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, internationally, the goal of the century, the second goal of that game, is much more significant. It's just in England we keep that Hand of God goal.
So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, is that moment makes that ball very expensive, priceless maybe for England, people in England, and Argentina. But beyond that, I don't know why anybody would want it.
No, I think probably the second goal more than anything else, the goal of the century, where he sort of dribbled past most of the England players. They don't need to be reminded of it, I suppose. But the referee in that game obviously didn't spot the Hand of God incident, and I suppose in not seeing the Hand of God, he's made the ball more significant that he can stand on at a later date.
Also, the referee kept the ball.
The referee kept the ball, yeah. So I mean, that's today. I think if a player scored a significant goal, they'd be more likely to want to keep it themselves.
We're talking very much about that game, that ball, Maradona, but generally football memorabilia is booming, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I think again, nostalgia has a big part to play. Certainly, it's the era that you grew up watching. So at the moment, so objects from the sort of 70s and 80s are particularly popular. And in the National Football Museum, we're lucky to have almost 200 years worth of football history on display, and we make it accessible for visitors to see every day in Manchester. But yeah, certainly at the moment, there's a real appetite towards sports objects and artefacts.
And you've brought a couple of other bits and pieces, haven't you? Talk us through what we have here on our desk.
Yeah, so I was asked really if there was anything that would surprise people, perhaps, as to what was of value. And I think at this point, people realise now that match-worn shirts and objects and boots and balls are worth, can be worth a significant amount of money if they're worn in a particular match. But actually, fan objects and unique sort of fan objects can be of value as well. And they're some of my favourite objects in the museum. So we've got a few football rattles here, which were sort of 10 a penny, really common in football grounds, in the sort of up until the 70s, really. And I expect people have these in their loft, but they're of cultural and social value and of emotional value, and sometimes, if they're particularly unique, maybe of financial value as well.
And the ball.
And the ball, yeah. So this ball is from the end of the 1800s, so it's one of the only footballs that I'm trusted to bring out with me this morning. But yeah, it's a leather football from over 100 years ago, so a very significant one.
Now, players sign a lot of stuff these days, don't they? I think players sign more autographs now than maybe they ever used to.
Yes.
Does that mean that in the years ahead, memorabilia won't be quite so valuable? Or is it the other way around? Is it because football's bigger now than it's ever been?
Yeah, it's in the eye of the beholder, I think. So sometimes objects that are signed in a way could be worth of less value because it's not as it was worn on the pitch. So you don't want to wash the shirt if you've got a shirt from a game. You don't want to sort of, do anything really to damage how it looked in the significant moment, I suppose. So sometimes autographs can actually take a little value off it. But yeah, certainly autographs themselves might be of less value, perhaps.
You don't want to wash the shirt.
No, you want to keep it as is in a dark room, no light to damage it. Ideally, no insects, nothing that'll bite holes into it, and yeah, keep it nice and as it was when it was on the pitch.
Even if that's a bit smelly.
If it's ideally, if it's smelly, yeah, adds value to it.
Adds to the provenance.
It does.
Christian, thank you very much indeed. What a fascinating world it is. Thanks for bringing in the props as well.
No bother, thank you.
I would really want to wash it.
Yeah, so would I. You're watching Breakfast. It's 8:59.
Now, world leaders have gathered in Bali for the first day of the G20 summit.